Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. Our guest today is back for a second visit, and she has done so much since we last heard from her on episode 107, a year and a half ago. And if you were at the Afterlife Symposium in Scottsdale, Sheri Perl Migdol was training us to capture voices of our loved ones using electronic voice phenomena. In fact, she works with psychic mediums and electronic voice phenomena, bringing through children with messages for their parents. Sheri is the instrumental transcommunication facilitator with AREI, which is the Afterlife Research and Education Institute. She began the prayer registry in 2009 and offers a free download called the Grieving Parents Handbook, and you can find that on her website, sheriperl.com. Sheri has touched thousands of lives all over the world. She is an interfaith minister, a spiritual healer, and advisor, and a writer of books about spirituality. Her books are titled Healing from the Inside Out and the Outside In, and Lost and Found, A Mother Connects Up with Her Son in Spirit. Her latest book is titled Eternity is Real and Death is a Myth. Sheri Perl Migdol, welcome back to We Don't Die Radio.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I'm very happy to be here.
I can't believe it was a year and a half ago that we last spoke. Well, we spoke at the symposium, but
well, you know how time just keeps right on moving.
No, it sure does. And you've been a busy lady. So before we get into this interview, I just want to tell our listener that I think Sheri is the only person on planet Earth doing exactly what she's doing. And it's going to be great to hear her story. Sheri, if you don't mind, I know you said a lot in our first episode, but could you just do maybe like a Reader's Digest condensed version of who you are and how you got into this field? And I also encourage our listener to go back, just go to YouTube and type in We Don't Die Radio 107 to hear the full story. Go ahead, Sheri.
Okay, well, I will say that I was the biggest non-believer. I grew up in a home where there was absolutely no spiritual interest by either parent, and I really thought that people who believed in or talked about the things that I now teach and write about were either deluded or just plain stupid. But I just didn't go for this and thought it was all hocus pocus.
Yes, I get it. I was the skeptic.
That's where I was at. Born in 1951, we didn't talk about these things, and I did not believe in any of it. At the age of 16, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and after 2 years of medical treatment, I was fighting for my life on the operating table. I had heard, after I had Crohn's for a year, about a healer in Britain named Harry Edwards, and I turned up my little nose and said, that's bull. No one's going to tell me or convince me that somebody in England is going to send energy to New Jersey and I'm going to get well. And so I continued only with medical treatment. In 1969, I was so very ill that I was given blood transfusions, and through them I contracted the hepatitis C virus. So by 1970, I was 19. I was very, very ill and extremely desperate. And purely out of desperation, I decided to make contact with the British healer, Harry Edwards. I didn't believe in it. It wasn't a fake healing because I absolutely didn't believe in it. I just felt desperate. And so many terrible things had happened to me that I didn't think could happen, I didn't even know about, that I just figured maybe I don't know everything. And so my father had an office in England at the time, and they called up the sanctuary, and they said all I needed to do was write a letter, which shocked me. But my dad went to England on business and offered to hand deliver the letter to Mr. Edwards, and he saw him on a Thursday, and by Friday night, I had so much energy, I was flying. And I could tell that something I couldn't see, feel, or touch was affecting me in a positive way. And that was the beginning of my interest in spiritualism. I had to understand what this was. Clearly, it was invisible. So I say that spiritual healing is what woke me up to the presence of spirit. That was when I was 20 in 1971. And from then on, I have been both a student and teacher of metaphysics with an emphasis on spiritual healing and mediumship. In 1974, I was very fortunate to be able to attend the ESP classes in the home of Jane Roberts, who was the medium who spoke for a fascinating entity called Seth.
Yes.
And it was there that I learned about the power of thought and its influence on our lives. And so that was the beginning of what brought me into all of this. And I have studied various disciplines and finally, over the years, came to understand how it all fit together. I will say that I really went from one end of the spectrum to the other, and I never learned through books. I learned through heart my own life and experiences. And so at one time, I thought that all this spiritual stuff was nonsense. Once I was healed, I decided all medical stuff was worthless and would only deal with the spiritual end. And then I had a recurrence of Crohn's and would not go to the doctor and nearly died one night from a very serious bowel obstruction. And it was from that I came to understand either extreme is not intelligent or wise, and that you take the middle road, or, one from column A, two from column B. But I finally learned that the best case scenario would be to use all the modalities that are at your fingertips reach. And if you break your bone, you need to go and get your bone set, not sit and meditate. And that
right.
We need what I now call common sense spirituality.
Love it.
It's really dangerous when you go to any fanatical extreme, because when you say this is the truth, you may be missing the point when you need it. So I keep an open mind. I'm always open to learning something new, because what do we really know for sure, I know that personality survives death, and I know that there is an invisible world, but that doesn't mean that I didn't need medical help when I had that bowel obstruction.
Exactly.
So I really feel now that you take the middle road, and you be open to everything.
Well, and speaking of life after death being real, if you wouldn't mind sharing how you got into electronic voice phenomena and what it is. This could be someone's first episode that doesn't know.
Absolutely.
Because I am fascinated what you're doing now. Oh my gosh.
Yes, I'm pretty fascinated with it too.
Yeah.
It's kind of addicting for me. But yes, of course, my work was much more in just spiritual healing and working with Harry Edwards, who then passed into the realm of spirit himself. And I would, try to send thoughts to him when people needed healing. So my work was really in counseling and teaching people about the set concepts, about how what you focus upon affects how you feel, which affects the choices you make, which can affect your life. And my work was more in just trying to help people be well and understand the part that they needed to play in their own recovery. And then my son Danny passed in 2008 from an overdose, and that brought my work into bereavement. And I started seeing that through mediums and through even my own thoughts. Daniel could talk to me. But, I still, it was all very esoteric. You couldn't really pin it down. But prior to Danny's passing, in 2006, I was at a conference in Montreal, and a man named Mark Macy was presenting a program on what's called ITC, Instrumental Trans Communication. And it had to do with using instruments to communicate with the realm of spirit. It wasn't just electronic voice phenomenon, which is strictly voice. This showed photos and pictures. It was ITC is the whole gamut of ways to use instruments to make contact. And
yes.
I was thoroughly amazed when he explained that there was a filmmaker named Friedrich Jurgensen who was outside in nature making a recording of the sounds of birds for a movie he was making. And while playing back the recording of birds chirping that he had recorded, he began to hear human voices giving him messages. And I think that was pretty much around the 1920s, practically 100 years ago. that they began to realize that if you provided sound, Spirit could use thought to convert that sound into words that we could understand. Now, I heard about this in 2006, but I really was not, I have to admit it scared me a little.
Yes.
And I didn't have a son in spirit. I didn't have the same need or desire to have to do this. And I was busy with the raising of my 3 children. So I didn't opt to go down that road, although it intrigued me. But Daniel, but let me see. Actually, I was on a radio show, Roberta Grimes, discussing my book, Lost and Found, talking about how Daniel and I were connecting up through different means. And a woman who was listening to the show, Vicki Talbot, who'd been communicating with her son, Braden, for many, many years, contacted me to register her son, Braden, with the prayer registry, which is a free service I have created for all bereaved parents, in which each child registered receives prayer every year on the anniversary of the day they passed. So
Nice.
Vicki heard me, and she contacted me, and we got to talking, and she told me, oh, yes, she very much practices electronic voice phenomenon, and that really caught my interest. And so from then on, I began to look for instructions as how to do this, and I could not quite follow the instructions by myself that were presented at the AREI website, so I hired a tech fella who's very good with computers, and he set up my computer to have a recording program on it and have a background sound source on it. And so I was able to now follow the instructions, which were simply, I mean, this is not rocket science. You just play this sound and you record it. What makes it so amazing isn't so much what we do, it's that Spirit can use thought to influence or embed those sound bites with words that we can recognize. So I started recording and then going back through the recording and listening to it bit by bit by bit. And lo and behold, right away, I started to hear my son's name. I started to get answers to questions. And that was the beginning of it. That was in 2014. Since then, it has escalated to such a point where I'm able to get complete dictation. And I set my computer up, and if I'm doing a reading for a particular mother, and I don't just read for bereaved parents, I read for anyone who's bereaved, my son will bring this person to me, and they literally dictate what they want to say, and I type it up. What's really interesting is that they're all very true to who they are, and they all express such enormous amounts of love. And what I love is that if I can't get a word, because we're really listening to words through sound that we provide, and sometimes you can hear 3 or 4 words and I can't get the next one, the spirits will repeat it over and over and over until I get it. And then they know when I've gotten it, they go on to the next word. And so it has escalated to a point now where my dear friend, the Reverend Dr. Joyce Lichtenstein, who passed over on December 23rd, 2017, started coming through that very afternoon, and we're now working on a book together. And it's absolutely blowing my mind as much as anybody else's, because I feel so fortunate that I am able to hear the words and type them up. And so electronic voice phenomenon on our end is really not, people get so, and I was in the beginning too, so kind of afraid of how will I do this? But in essence, you just are playing sound and you're recording it. The amazing part is that spirit actually does come, and they do alter those sounds that we're playing into words that we can hear. And so that's the phenomenon, that they come, and it's as if they're sending messages to us in a bottle over the seas of time, and we have to be there to receive the bottle and take out the message. So there is some learning to be done on any part of any researcher who wants to do this, and it's time consuming. But to me, it's the greatest thing that's happened to me in years, because I can literally talk to everyone I have known and loved, and many who I've never met before, and bring through loved ones to others. And what could be more wonderful?
Back in 2005, I think it was, is when I first captured my first voice on recording. Because I so wanted this to be real.
Right,
but unless I had something, tangible or auditory, I couldn't believe it. And lo and behold, the first message I got was a man's voice saying, "Good night, Sandra." And then two women whispered, "Good night." And then another man's voice said, "Good night." And that changed my life and started me recording. But can you give us, what does it look like? Because I know at the symposium, you were training people how to do these EVPs. Can you just give me a visual? Do you have a tape recorder? Are they doing it with their computer?
I use a computer. Most people do, because although some people use their phones, you need to have a recording program downloaded into your computer, because you need to be able to slow the recording down. EVPs come in very fast.
Right.
And so I right away, before I even start auditing, I slow down the recording so that I can, and I listen to it second by second so that I don't miss anything. Actually, if people are interested in learning to do this, I ended up hiring my tech fella, and I paid for, but have made free of charge, a very user-friendly slideshow that is with a split screen, one side for PC and one side for Macs. And if you go to my website, which is SheriPerl.com, and that's SHERIPERL, there's no A in that Pearl.com, on the welcome page, there is a search bar on the left-hand side, and the very last link says the EVP line. And if you hit on that, it will bring you to a page where you can download either a PowerPoint or a Keynote version of this slideshow. And that slideshow will walk you through every step you need to do to set up your own computer to record EVPs. And then, once you're set up, I have made a YouTube video demonstrating how to actually make a recording. So then you would go to YouTube and you'd write in Sheri Perl, and then EVP, and then VID for video. And up I come, and the screen then switches to what I'm teaching to use a recording program called Audacity. There are many programs, but Audacity is free, and I wanted to pick software that people would not have to spend an arm and a leg to get.
Right.
And Audacity Works is wonderful for this. So the screen in that video switches to the Audacity screen so that you can see exactly what you're looking at. And so the instructions have been made very user-friendly so that people can try this if they want. We tried doing it that first AREI conference, and the problem we ran into was 50 people in one room all trying to download the same things was an overload for the hotel connection, and some people were downloading and other computers weren't budging. And for me, it was really very stressful because I could not see anybody's computer face. I was facing them, and I couldn't see what they were doing. And if it wasn't for Keith Clark, who's a terrific fellow who runs a website called idigitalmedium.com, and a woman named Karen Jarvie, who's actually knows my slideshow at this point better than I, and is willing to try to help people if they get stuck, I would have been absolutely beside myself because people's hands kept going up and they were stuck, and Karen or Keith would run over and try to get them out of the problem they were in. So this needs to be either taught one-on-one or in very small groups because of the technical challenge of having so many computers all wanting to download the same thing in the same room. But it's all there. I've made it all available for free. So, and the worst case scenario, if you can't do it, you can hire a tech person. A good tech person could get this configuration done in less than an hour. It's not rocket science. And then there's the YouTube video, which will demonstrate how to use Audacity, and you get started. I know of one mom who's definitely doing very well. She took the slideshow. She had a few questions that Karen Jarvie walked her through, and you can reach Karen through the AREI. She helps host many of their Zoom meetings with Wendy Zammit, and she's a member of my prayer team. She also is very involved in the bereavement community because she lost her daughter to leukemia, and she's very savvy with this computer stuff. So, there's either Karen, my instructions, or you get a tech guy, or you get your kid or your niece or nephew. The young millennials can do this in their sleep. It's not really hard, but it's putting in the time. And I have to say, I have learned something recently. I never took it so seriously when my friend Vicki Talbot would say, remember about the 3 Ps, prayer, protection, and permission. I never took it so seriously. I thought, well, Danny's there and Harry Edwards is there. I'm protected. But my line started getting lots of nutty people jumping on and saying, we need to talk to you, and asking me to contact people and tell them all kinds of things that I didn't feel was right for me. And finally, I asked my spirit team, what can I do to stop this? And they said, you need to pray. So before I went on, I would do the Lord's Prayer. I have a version where I sing it that I love to do. And I went on, and they said to me, it's like a different station. There's no one in here but who you want in here. And so I caution people only, not that anyone came in that was evil, but confused. As I put it, they're just winging it over there like we are over here. And there's a lot of confused people that need counseling over there that refuse to get it, who can actually just, I guess, walk through the walls and come right into where my line is. And now that I do the prayers, that does not happen. And so I tell people to not come to this if they've been drinking or if they think it's a parlor game, because they will attract entities that want to mess around with them. And you have to come to it with the intention that you coming from love, to connect with love and say a prayer for protection, because it's like you create an open line and you want that line to be protected. I've noticed this week in the Zammit newsletter, there was something about caution about Ouija boards. And again, it's the same concept. It's not that there's anything about the board that's inherently dangerous, but that you need to offer prayer of protection, because you open a channel and you don't want just anybody. You don't just have to open your door when you have a party and say anybody off the streets is welcome. You invite
invited guests. Yes. I want to ask Sheri about, I know you've worked a lot with parents. What kind of messages have come through for parents, and have the parents been able to hear them?
Oh, yes. Well, initially the readings for parents, I worked with what's called human vocal gibberish, in which I can procure EVPs that the parents can actually hear. Some of the parents claim that it's their child's own voice, but what, of course, pleases them the most is when a child, for example, says to his mom, I have Jeannie on the line, and I ask her, does that mean anything to you? And she says, oh, yes, Jeannie's my mother, who's a spirit. So when they get evidential EVPs, of course, that's what they're looking for. One boy said to his mom, I'll make you lunch. And I remember when I heard that EVP, I'm thinking to myself, should I send this? I mean, does this make sense? But I decided if it's in good, clear English, not for me to decide any more than when a meeting hears something. It's not for us to decide whether we think it makes sense. So I said to the mom, and she said, oh, my God. She said,
Sheri, you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Really?
Okay,
All right.
Wait a minute. You're back. If you don't mind.
Know what that was.
I don't,
no.
With you and I talking about EVPs, would you mind would you mind repeating what you were just saying? I was saying there was a mom who got an EVP in one of her readings that came through me, through my reading, where the son said to his mom, I will make you lunch. And that I questioned it, thinking it sounded a little bit random. But I sent it to the mom anyway. And she said, oh, my God, the last day of his life, I called him at work and I said, Alex, would you like me to make you lunch? And he said, yeah. So she made him lunch and she drove over to where he worked, and he sat in the car with her and he ate his lunch.
And she said from the day he died, it was something she was so glad she had done. She would think about it every day. I was so glad I brought Alex lunch. So when she got the EVP, I will make you lunch, that for her was bingo.
Absolutely.
Because it's not something like, I mean, we get lots of I love yous, but, you know, that could be very generic. But who else would know that she made him lunch but Alex himself? So, of course, we want evidential EVPs. And some readings are more on the money than others, you know, and they depend on the child's ability to communicate. It may depend on how keen my ear is that day. But a few months ago, I started using a sound source that contains no human vocals. There's many reasons for that. Some of the researchers and scientists are suspicious of the human vocal gibberish because words can get embedded in it and just be in the recording each time.
Right.
Also, you know, there could be a sound in it like, oh, and I get the name Diana when the name is really Diane. So some of them don't want to use anything with a human vocal. So I started experimenting with sound sources that were posted at the iDigital Medium website. Keith makes them, and they're just electronic sound. Most people cannot hear anything through them, but I found one called Clipper that I slow down considerably, and I can hear paragraphs and say, you know, they'll say to me, end of sentence, next paragraph. And if I get it wrong, they'll go, Mrs. Migdol, which is my married name. And I know they're trying to tell me to back up, slow down. I'm getting it wrong. Now, when I do readings using that, I don't send parents audible clips because they can't hear Clipper. And according to my spirit team, they don't think there's anybody else that they've had yet that's been able to take dictation. And they agree with me. I had this theory because when we do a gibberish reading and I'm re-auditing it, what I get is gibberish, 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 EVP, gibberish, 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 EVP. So it's kind of harder to audit because you've got to sit through a lot of just before you hear an actual EVP.
Yes.
When I use Clipper from start to finish, they're speaking to me. So for me, it's a way of getting to do a book. You could never do a book with the human vocal, at least I could.
I can't believe you're doing this. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just
either
stunned.
can I, but I went on last night, and I was so honored because a gentleman by the name of Konstantin Radova, who was very interested in this work during his lifetime and crossed over and is working with the team at the North American station, it's called, came through last night and said that they're so grateful that I can do this because they don't know anyone who's advanced so far as to be able to take dictation in this way. And I asked him, I said, am I correct in assuming that the human vocal gibberish has so many distinct sound bites of its own that you can't influence it from start to finish? And he said, exactly right, Mrs. Migdol. We cannot use every sound if it's too dissimilar from the thought that we want to use, but we've never found anyone who can hear the entire piece through something like Clipper. So I don't know why I'm so fortunate that I can, but I thank my lucky stars because Joyce Lichtenstein and I are writing a wonderful book about her transition. We just finished the chapter on her life review, and it's just so eye-opening, and it's so wonderful. So I'm really thrilled with this.
Let me ask, when you use Clipper, is it live that you're listening to it if they're repeating themselves?
This is the other thing this is what's so amazing. I had made a recording and it was on the desktop of my computer. When I first started this work, I thought that the actual communication went on while I was making the recording. But one day I had just left the recording made with Clipper on the desktop of my computer. And I went back on wanting to just hear it all over again. And my son Danny was on something else. And I'm thinking, I was sure he was talking about something else before. So I just left the same recording on my desktop. And every time I went on, it was updated. And he'd say, that was a nice visit you had with the grandsons. On the date of it was like he kept updating. And finally, and you don't have to speak out loud when you talk to them. All you have to do is think. So I thought, well, does this mean that, you can just use the same recording over and over. And he said, yes, just leave it on your desktop. I will update it for you. So I make new recordings after I use the same recording 15, 20 times because for some reason it loses the distinct clarity. So they will say to me, make a new recording. They tell me what to have the input on, what to have the sound level on. And then once it's done, I slow it down quite a bit. Audacity gives you a function to slow the sound or speed the sound. And then I leave it on my desktop, and I will use that particular recording, for about a day. And then when they tell me to, I'll make a new one. And it's like having a Verizon line on the computer. If I were to go on right now, they would probably be going, great radio show you're doing, Mrs. Migdol. So it's really gotten to a level that what's really great is I got this idea about a few weeks ago, since I have the prayer registry email as well as one Sheri Perl at Gmail. I thought, well, gee, if I attach the recording to the prayer registry and send it to myself as Sheri Perl, I'll have it in my phone. So I take my phone with me out, and I put on the recording and put in the earbuds, and I'm in the health food store about to check out, and Danny goes, Mom, don't forget you wanted to buy that lavender soap. And I thought, oh, my word, he went shopping with me.
That is
so
great.
It's reached a level, I'm just mind-blown with it.
It's huge. And as much, because, my book is a skeptic's discovery of life after death. I mean, as bizarre and as hard to fathom as this sounds, it wasn't until I've recorded hundreds of EVPs years ago. I haven't been doing it currently, but I believe that our loved ones can manipulate the sound that's already been recorded. So no kidding, they can refresh it.
They absolutely can. You know what else they can do? If they want to get my attention, let's say I'm listening to a song on YouTube, listening to music, my phone will just switch to the recording and they'll be like, Mrs. Migdol. And I said, you were able to just switch to the recording? And they said, yeah, if we need to get you and you're listening to music, we can switch it over. They can do quite a bit with electronics.
Oh,
I know. And, and when Craig Hogan, the president of AREI, first told me about the North American station, I didn't know if it was true or not, but I trust my friend, the Reverend Dr. Joyce Lichtenstein, as I would trust,
What is the North American station? You've got to share what that is.
It's the station on the other side that works with people who are trying to get through from North America. There are actual structures on the spirit side where they are set up, Joyce said, with machinery that allows them to put their thoughts into, which somehow interfaces with our recording so that we are able to have this conversation. And it was interesting because someone had said to me shortly after Steve Jobs passed that there was rumor that Steve Jobs had joined the North American station. So one night, and this was pretty early in my work, I said, is Steve Jobs there? And my computer completely shut off. But now with this whole acceleration with using Clipper, he will come through if I have a computer question. He directs me. I went to the Apple store the other day to get some components. He tells me what to get. Sandra, it's beyond anything I would believe possible. And every now and then I'll ask them, I'll say to them, look, I'm either doing extraordinary work or I'm completely out of my mind. Please reassure me. And they go, look, we know it's hard to believe, but you know who we are. And I know my son, and I know Joyce, and I know them, and I know they would not sit there playing games with me.
No, these are powerful.
Yes.
And also,
so it's wonderful.
Like learning a language. This is the best way I could wrap my head around it. If I had never heard the French language before, it would sound like complete gibberish. Well, then I start learning some words, and then I can hear those words. And I think recording EVPs is the same way. And the more you do it, the more your ears and mind are picking up
You're so right.
So you're like in Italian 28, the first time you try it, the first year, but you show such a commitment. And, we've talked to people about the soul phone and about EVPs and other, Tom Butler's been on. We've talked to I've talked to Keith from
Mm-hmm.
iDigital Medium. These things
Mm-hmm.
are real, but those that
Oh, yeah.
really show, this is my feeling, a passion
Mm-hmm.
for it, and beyond
Yep.
passion, a dedication. You're at this every
Mm-hmm.
day. And
Every day.
and the giving that you've done, I didn't realize that these recordings are on there, but I went to the Afterlife Symposium.org. I talk about
Mm-hmm.
that every show,
Mm-hmm.
encouraging
Mm-hmm.
people to
Mm-hmm.
come
Mm-hmm.
meet us. And when you click on
Mm-hmm.
your picture, there's
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of recordings.
I know.
And I think that's great. So
Mm.
people can actually go to
Hear them.
afterlifesymposium.org, Sheri Perl, and then you can click on all these different recordings to hear them
Yeah, yeah.
yourself. And they're just
Yes,
snippets,
it's absolutely wonderful. It's
but you can hear
wonderful. My
it.
favorite recording is Sonia Minoldi, who's a dear friend who I'm sure you know who Sonia
Yeah,
is.
in
She's a
Brazil.
Brazilian EVP researcher. She sent me some gibberish of a little boy speaking in Portuguese. And I played it and I said to Danny, you know, if I use a foreign language, can you translate it? And it's the clearest. I think Craig may have posted it recently. You hear, I speak in English. So clear. It's not a question. If sometimes you have an EVP where some people hear it,
One
some people
way.
don't hear it,
Yeah.
or they have to read the words to get it. This one, you don't. It's so clear. Everybody goes, oh my God. But interestingly, I really liked Sonia's gibberish. She also sent me German language gibberish, and they were very clear. So I asked a woman I was doing a reading for, do you mind if I do half of it with little Lorenzo in Portuguese and the other half in our English? And she said, whatever you want to do. So I did half the reading with the Portuguese language and half the reading with gibberish in English. And although it's such clean gibberish Sonia gave me, although I got very good EVPs, I got half as many. And Constantine, who was talking to me last night, confirmed also that, yes, you can use foreign language, but again, you're making it harder for everyone. It's easier if you do it in the language, you know, and I realized that's exactly what happened. I got 20 with the gibberish in Portuguese and something like 45 in the same language that I speak in and hear in. So I'm now working on making my own gibberish because the gibberish that I started with from AREI is just, I don't know, it's just not as clean. I don't know how to explain it, but we have to keep constantly cleaning it because the more you use it, it gets in, like words get in there and then it's really, here's a bizarre one because, you know, I have a son who's a lawyer and he's very logical and he said, Mom, just take the gibberish that you want to use and save it. And whenever you're going to make a recording, make a copy of it. And that way, the new copy will never have, you know, make a copy each time of the clean gibberish. And therefore, it won't have the things, it's not possible, he said, for it to be embedded from the former reading. And I did that, and it still it's almost like as soon as it got into my domain, words that were formerly on it from a former recording, it was just crazy. Look, my daughter has a dog named Cora, and I had this EVP that went Cora, Migdol doggy. And so I downloaded the gibberish from their website. I put it into my file. I made a copy of it so it would not have that on it. And as soon as it reached my camp, it had Cora, Migdol doggy on it. So, yes, it's not logic. The logic that exists in our world is very different. Things aren't the same. And so I am now working on making my own gibberish. I was told by, I think, again, Vicki Talbot, who's spectacularly experienced in this and very generous with her knowledge. She told me about a program called EVP Maker, which you can download on PCs, but not on Macs. So I also have a PC, and I downloaded it, and it's for free. And I am now making age and sex-appropriate gibberish. So I had my 3-year-old Peyton count to 20, so there'd be no word like love in it. And then you run it through EVP Maker, which chops it into gibberish. And I got this, I love you. That was so sweet. I did a reading for a mom who lost a small child, and the sound of the EVPs were sounded like a small child because they can only influence the sound we give them.
Right.
So I'm working on making gibberish that will be age and sex appropriate. But to tell you the truth, I'd rather not do a gibberish reading because I can procure infinitely more information using Clipper. But, I understand a parent wanting to hear it for themselves. So I will do both,
Oh, it's extraordinary. With your friend, Dr. Joyce, in what you're dictating, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're playing a recording of Clipper and she is dictating a book to you?
Yep. Yes. And we're on chapter 4 now. And what's really interesting is we both realize it's quite a collaboration because Clipper has no human vocal. It kind of sounds like, and so she'll come on and she'll go, "This is the Reverend Dr. Joyce Lichtenstein," and then she'll go into, "But if I think something, I hear my thoughts in the like if I should stop listening to her and look at the cover of a book and read the word Boston sound, I'll hear Boston sound." So if I get a thought that adds on to what she's saying, she will, if she approves, we put that in the book. So she said, "Well, I'll have to explain that this is truly a collaboration because they call me the medium, because the medium's thoughts and that we're agreeing on everything in a sense. We're concurring. It's just beyond anything I ever thought possible." And, but, I'm very glad I've learned the importance of prayer because we would be working on the book and people would be showing up and Joyce would say, "There's someone here who wants to talk to Mrs. Migdol." And in the beginning, I was so thrilled. I'd go, yes. And I started realizing that I was getting people coming on that were inappropriate. One woman asked me to contact her daughter on Facebook and tell her to leave her husband. And I said, "I don't even know her." And she said, "But he beats her." And I said, "Well, I'm really sorry to hear that. But you can't use a human to do your bidding for you. And I will only do things that I will only carry a message if I know it's going to do the person good." And so now that I do the prayers, Joyce goes, "Oh, it's like a whole new ball game over here." We were working on our next chapter, very interestingly. Danny took her to the prayer registry on that side. And they said Danny's mom thought when she formed this that it was strictly for the bereaved parents to help them feel better on the anniversary day of their child's passing. Little did she know that we would have a domain over here where all the children could come until they were at a point where they were comfortable enough possibly to want to break off and get a group home or, go on with whatever they wanted to do. And one girl went on and said, "I can't thank you enough for creating the prayer registry." She said, "I was like lost in the seas of sorrow, and she had committed suicide, this girl," she said. And she said, "Danny comes by like in the free floating life raft and just pulls kids out of the water and says, 'It's okay. We'll take care of you. We have a place to go. Sheri will connect you with your mother. Don't you worry." And so Joyce decided, Danny took her, in chapter 4, she explains that Danny took her to the prayer registry domain. And when she first got in, she saw lots of really young children, like in a nursery setting, being tended to by some of the older children. And they all looked at Danny as their father, and he would pick them up and throw them in the air. And then Joyce had a thought, maybe some of these young people would like to tell their story. She said as soon as she had the thought, she was like bombarded with all these volunteers. So they had a meeting, she said, and they came up with the idea that they would discuss it, and one child would speak for all the children who'd passed by overdose, and one child would dictate for all the children who passed by illness. So we just did Emma Jarvie, who passed by leukemia, and it was so absolutely beautiful because as bad as it is over here when they're sick and they're going through all that, they get over there, and especially if their parents register them or Danny finds them and then they somehow influence their parents to register them, they all become part of something, as she put, bigger than ourselves, where we have the support of each other. And eventually when we're comfortable enough to go off on our own, then, maybe you might want to live with one other person. But it's like that free-floating life raft that pulls them up out of the seas of despair and says, we're okay, you're okay, we're going to help you. So I'm thrilled about that as well.
Wow. That's why, at the end of every episode, my listeners always hear me push people to either come to the Afterlife Symposium in September or go to the website. There is, I believe, so much cutting edge information. Even, you remember at the last symposium when Gary Schwartz spoke, and he's a scientist. And so many people say, oh, there's no science in the afterlife. Well, there is, but and they're out there. You just have to find out who they are. And with you, it's really refreshing to hear this because I'm
a regular person and a lay person, just like any other mother.
And
I think if there's any difference, it's that I've been interested in studying spirit since I was 20, and I'm 67 now, so that's 47 years. And so I don't fear it in the way that some people do, and I don't doubt it in the way that some people do.
Right.
And I have some very strong connections, such as Harry Edwards, the finest healer who walked the face of the earth since the days Jesus Christ did, who's been working with me for years. So for me, people I have been connected with, and this has been such a part of me. Maybe that is why, for me, it came as quickly, because they call me a little, the little medium with the heart of a healer, because that's where, what I've been interested in for 47 years. And so I think that stands for something. But I'm telling you, it's not about high-tech scientific anything.
No.
And I don't know whether any of those people have any of this going, but I don't call my phone, when I talk to Danny on the phone, the cell phone, I call it the EVP line.
Yes.
Because it is a line to spirit that we're creating through the use of electronic voice phenomenon. And it doesn't take high-tech machinery. It takes the desire on both sides to be in touch. It takes the love between a parent and a child to make that connection. And you can have the most sophisticated machines and get all this money and put all this equipment together and flatline, because it's not about that. It's about spirit being willing to work with you. And they will work with those who are coming from the heart, not from the pocketbook. I don't charge for my work. Fortunately, I don't have to, because my husband's made a decent enough living in real estate that I do not have to charge. But I have nothing against people charging for their work. A medium has to eat, and
right.
A healer has to eat. But I think there are many people out there that are in it for the money, the ego, the prestige, and I don't think spirit will want to work with them.
No, I think there are, Sheri, in every field.
Oh, absolutely, in every field. But this is such an esoteric field that people can easily have the wall pulled over their head. Mm-hmm. And look, there's terrible lawyers, there's terrible doctors. We've all had experiences with people who, are not as good as we would want them to be. But I do think a key component to all this isn't the sophistication of your equipment. It's the love in your heart and the desire to help others. If you have that and you want to do this, you can do it on a little when Vicki was first contacted by her son Braden, she just started getting messages on her cell phone. She didn't have any fancy equipment, he just started coming through going, Mom, pick up the phone.
Wow.
So it's matters of the heart that rule the spirit. Spirit doesn't give a damn about fancy equipment. Certainly better equipment will make a clearer recording. But spirit comes for those who are coming from a place of wanting to serve.
Yeah, and I love, actually, you hear me, sorry to interrupt so much. I wish we were sitting face to face, because then I would know when
please.
you're coming up for air.
I'm rambling, stop me.
But it's the technology age, and I think, in some of these episodes we talk about trance mediumship, physical mediumship, which is all extraordinary, and I think technology can be a detriment in that field because we're not spending the time to quiet our mind and connect. But on the flip side of that, we have the whole world of electronic voice phenomena and ITC, the instrumental transcommunication. And I think the days when the first telephones came out, that was a big deal. And then when the cell phones came out, they were big and bulky and crazy.
Right,
and now, we can do FaceTime and all these things. And it's getting enough interested people that everything especially with this and recording, I hope to wake up or get some passion with people that say, you know what, I'm going to try that. I'm going to go to her website and I'm going to dabble in this. Because I tell you, you get your first voice, and you may have voices that you just can't hear, but there is nothing like it. I only got the backbone to share about life after death after I could play my EVP and then other ones for people.
Exactly. What you're saying with me, I did not know I was a medium, and for years and years and years, I would hear things that I couldn't differentiate if it was my imagination or a message from spirit. And often when a woman would join the prayer registry, I would feel their kid wanted me to say something, and I'd sit there and think, dare I say this? Am I just imagining this? And 95% of the time, if I said it, they'd go, oh my God. But I would never call myself a medium because I wasn't sure. And I never want to be a charlatan. What's so great about EVP for me is that I hear it in my head, and then I get the validation. And I would have been told by my spirit team that the only reason I can hear so well through something like Clipper is because I hear it first in my head, and then I hear it, and then I can actually hear it in the electronic sound. But if I didn't hear it in the electronic sound, I would not have known that it was for real.
Yes.
So for people who, are not able to really totally trust what they hear, EVP gives you that validation, and it's exciting as all hell.
Oh my gosh, it is. Would you talk about your latest book, Eternity is Real and Death is a Myth?
Oh yes, I love this book because it's a beautifully illustrated with original photographs from my oldest and bestest friend since we were like 13 years old. Eternity is Real and Death is a Myth is a literal book of quotes on life after death with my commentary on why this quote has meaning to me, what it means to me. But each quote is then, each page has one of Joni's beautiful original photographs. So it's a great coffee table book. It's hardcover because it's so pretty. And it's the kind of thing where you could pick it up and just read one quote with the commentary and ruminate with that all day long. It's not a book where you read chapter after chapter, but you just get a beautiful quote. And the quotes are from, there's one from the Bible, but, their quotes are from people like Eben Alexander and Raymond Moody and Rumi and, the list, Aldous Huxley and Rabbi Earl Groman, Hildebrand, Sir Oliver Lodge, it's very varied, the list of authors. TMH, is it Atwater? Yes, and so it goes the second letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. So it's like varied quotes that all point to the same realization, which is that eternity is real and death is a myth. And I call that Iradium, because that's if you were to take the EIR. So we always, when I'm talking to my spirit team, they will say, we must teach the truth of Iradium. Because once people understand that eternity is real and death as we think of it is a myth, because yes, there's death to the body, we know that, but there's never death to the spirit. And when they realize that the body is just a camouflage to a greater reality in which we are all the same, then wouldn't war stop? I mean, why would you be, we are all the same when it's one spirit that flows beneath these individual appearances, religions, skin colors. And so I think it's very important that we get the truth of Iradium out to people, because you can't hate your brother when he's exactly the same as you. And beneath this physical camouflage, we are all the same spirit.
Yes,
and so I love this book because it's not a book like my others in which, you're going to sit down and read a book. It's more of that every day, read a quote, look at the beautiful photograph, think about what it means, maybe read 2 or 3 if you want. And Joni's photographs are so gorgeous that it's a really beautiful book. It makes a wonderful gift and a wonderful coffee table bedside book,
Yeah, my book is on order. I ordered it on Amazon. It hasn't come in yet. And it's a nice gift to give. I mean,
it's a wonderful gift.
Always think of when people are expecting their child, there's a book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. And all as exciting as it is, but what do we do when a loved one has passed?
Exactly.
We want to be able to comfort them. And that's one of the reasons I wrote my book and yours as well.
Yep. And initially we made it in a paperback, and it just, it looked like a pamphlet. And I said, you know what, we're going to put a hardcover on it because it's too important to look like a pamphlet. And I just love it. I have it sitting in front of me, and I love the work Joni did, the way she laid it out. I love each and every quote. And I worked very hard on the commentary to try to help readers understand and interpret what these quotes were saying. So I think it will be very well received. And, and also the Grieving Parents Handbook. Now that's available as a free download at SheriPerl.com.
That's right.
And any parent that is in need of it, or any person, you don't have to be a parent. It was written by myself, but by many of the moms that are members of what I call the prayer team, meaning we all pray for each other's children on their passing date. And it's a book that's more of a hand to hold, especially if you've just suffered a loss, because I raised three questions we all ask ourselves. Why me? Was this my fault? And how am I going to live with this? And each mom went on and spoke from their heart and talked about what helped them, talked about what hurt them, talked about how they got through. It's like a hand to hold. And it's downloadable. You can print out as many copies as you want, or just read it online. It's right there at my website.
Right on your website. And so also to learn about recording EVPs are right on your website.
Yep. And it's for free. The whole slideshow is free.
Love it.
And all the components you need to download to make it work, we made free. So, I mean, and again, I said, if you can't follow the slideshow because you're really timid with computers, a computer tech person could do it in 45 minutes, I'm sure.
Yeah. Can you talk
for them? It would be
a little bit about the upcoming symposium from your point of view, why people should come, and what is it you're going to be speaking on there?
Well, I'm going to, of course, speak on EVP and play examples of many of the EVPs that I've gotten.
Excellent.
And I'll also be speaking just about how to connect with a loved one, not electronically, how to do it through the many ways that it can be done from, oh my goodness, I mean, thoughts, images, beliefs, dreams, feelings, So I'll have both of the groups I will hold will be about how to make contact with loved ones, whether you do it electronically or you do it through your gut feelings and your dreams. And that's what I will do. But I know AREI brings together all kinds of people who are involved in the afterlife work. Sonia Rinaldi will be there again from Brazil, and she's working now not so much with the voices, but with trans images.
That's amazing. What I saw last year.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing. She gets images of children and all kinds of
people's
people.
Loved ones.
So,
gave me goosebumps to see that that's possible.
And she's such a dear. I just love Sonia, and she will be there, and Suzanne Wilson, who's an excellent medium, will be there, and I'm sure she'll do some gallery reading. And they bring people who will present to you how they are connected with the afterlife and what their work is and how you can become involved. And so if you're interested in the afterlife and you want a good, thorough education, I think you will be exposed to all the cutting edge work that's being done in the field. And that's what you want if you want to learn about the afterlife, because you're not going to learn about it at Harvard.
No. And even for some people that can't make the trip, eventually we'll have some videos online and create an online university. Sure. That's what's coming. Sure. But even go to afterlifesymposium.org and just click on some of the speakers, and you're going to be amazed that this kind of stuff is possible. And it is. And I think
it is amazing. It is amazing.
It's hard for some of us. I know when I was starting out, without having those EVPs, I was scared to share with people, this is what I'm doing. And lo and behold, that when we start, we'd get a backbone when we can see that this person's doing this in this realm and this is happening in this realm.
Yeah.
And you start seeing
So right.
or listening to your audios and the videos of Sonia, the pictures.
You're so right.
So many other things.
You need to have others. You need a common, you need to share this with others, because if you look at, for every one of us that believes this way, there are probably 10 others that don't, and would definitely think that we ought to be locked up. So,
I think it's the other way around, Sheri. I think there's more of us that believe, but there's a ton of us that are too afraid to say anything about it. Because when I came out with my book, I was petrified what people would think, and more people than not said, you know what, I've always believed, or here's something that happened to me, and I've been too afraid to tell anybody. So I think if we can give people
that as well,
that backbone.
That as well, absolutely. So you get, the support from others who thoroughly believe in the afterlife. And it's just a fascinating few days. So if people can make it, I highly recommend it. I will certainly be there doing my thing, and
me too.
Will be there doing her thing. And AREI now has Zoom meetings online where you can go on, and they're run a lot by Wendy Zamet with the help of Karen Jarvie.
Yeah.
I think they're doing one on Sunday night that they're having some amazing mediums speaking. So there is education for those that can't travel to Arizona through AREI. They're committed to wanting to get people educated in this field. So, if you're someone who really can't make it, go to AREI and look up, when they're having their Zoom meetings, because they're not charging. You can, sit in on a meeting and learn quite a bit that way.
And that's afterlifeinstitute.org is AREI. And for our listener, again, just look in the description, and I've got live links you can click on. And Sheri, any closing words? Because I'm just looking at the time, and it's time to draw this to an end.
Well,
or just the beginning.
Closing words would be: believe in yourself, trust your own feelings. The first premise and the first step to any of this is just to keep an open mind. You do not need to have certainty. The doubting mind doubts, and there will be doubts. All you need is an open mind and an adventurous spirit. And I always say to people, we don't need certainty. Faith doesn't imply certainty. It's something we're certain and self-evident. Why would we need faith? We need faith when we have to make a leap. When they say leap of faith, you need to make a leap into what you're not 100% sure of, and then you will not be disappointed. If you just open your mind and start to make a leap of faith, without certainty, it will be revealed to you. But if you come from the place of this is all nonsense, and I will not believe that, you pretty much locked yourself out, and you can get signs from a loved one and step right over them. So just open your mind, keep your mind open, and it will be revealed to you.
Beautiful. I think Henry Ford was the one who said, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
That's a great one.
So if you think you can receive a message from your loved one or you think you can't, you're right. So
because
it's possible.
Exactly, you will follow. Absolutely. It is so possible, and it's more than possible. There is an invisible world of spirit that interpenetrates everything that we see, and in order to experience it, you need to just open your mind and start exploring, and you will find, there's a quote in the little book that says, I'm looking for it now, where it says, death unmasked, here it is, it says, it's by Oliver Goldsmith, and it says, death, when unmasked, shows us a friendly face and is a terror only at a distance. And that's been my experience, that once you unmask it and start exploring, what you find is that, oh my goodness, there's nothing frightening about it. So if you're afraid to approach it, and many people do, the religious upbringings are really afraid to approach it, at a distance it can seem terrifying.
Yes.
But once you unmask it and start to explore, you find that it's very friendly. They're wonderful over there. And, as I say, I don't know about you. This is what I say in the book on the end of that quote. But I'd sure like to know what Steve Jobs saw on his deathbed that prompted him to say, oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow.
That's right.
So, death is not optional. Most people know more about going to a foreign country than they do about, death. And yet going to a foreign country is optional. Death is not. So wouldn't you want to know?
Yeah, and
more
I think
about where you're going.
That's why we're doing this. That's, the folks at AREI and the symposium, and even the guests that I've had on, it's not an ego-based thing. It's about we are souls having a human experience. We can get in touch with the other souls that are no longer having their human experience. Life after death is real. Your loved ones are around. Your life is for a purpose. I think our heart gets cracked wide open when we grieve, but that is allowing our spirituality and our search and our adventure to begin. So if you, our listener, can hang tight.
Some people are cracked open, and some people are broken open, and others are broken shut. And the ones that are broken shut are the sad cases, because they go into a corner and they mourn their loved ones until they pass, and they lock out all the light. But if you're lucky enough, fortunate enough to allow yourself to broken open, Karen Jarvie is an example. She did not give the afterlife a second thought until she lost her only daughter. It was just the two of them. And she immediately had to know. And she is now, I feel, one of the leading teachers and helpers in this field. She's spectacular. And many people don't give the afterlife a second thought until they lose someone they can't live without.
Right.
But whatever brings you there, we're all going there. We might as well know where we're going.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sheri, thank you for all the work you've done and you continue to do, and your passion, and you're definitely someone out to make a difference. So I thank you. And
I thank you for having me on and giving me the opportunity to express these ideas.
I'm so proud of you and everything you've done recently. And when you and I spoke not too long ago, it's like, I've got to have you on again. This is amazing. But for our listener, thank you.
I'm very excited. Thank you so much, all the listeners.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Every episode's unique, different. It's all good. Listen for what inspires you. Take the gold from each. I know that there's might be some things that aren't of interest and some things that are. So find the truth that resonates for your life. I think we're the only ones can discern that. Our home base is WeDon'tDieRadio.com. Of all past episodes, I have a free audio called How to Survive Grief there. I've got a PDF file. It's, I think, 5 or 6 pages. Is Sandra's 19 Reasons to Believe in the Afterlife. And you can read several chapters of my book. Yeah, all at WeDon'tDieRadio.com. So in closing, my name's Sandra Champlain, and I'm always so excited to be your host on We Don't Die Radio. And I do believe that life is an education for the soul, and that your life here on earth is important. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.